Okay, so my name is Oystein Haugen, and you can see my co-authors on the slide here, coming from Norway, Austria, Canada, and Belgium. And the issue is DarTwin, made precise by SysML version 2, an experiment. And we've already heard something about SysML version 2, and you will hear a little bit more in just a few seconds. A quick overview of what I'm going to talk about. It's the first I will talk about the DarTwin, the notation, very briefly, and then about this DarTwin DSL that we defined by using SysML v2 mechanisms for that purpose. And then we try to see how SysML version 2 tools could be used for the purpose of being tools for our DarTwin DSL. And then finally, I'll talk about something using the DarTwin notation, and the part of it called DarTrans for the evolution. First, quickly about the DarTwin, the notation. So some of us made a sourcing paper some time ago this year, and it was called Continuous Evolution of Digital Twins using the DarTwin notation. And it's actually going to be presented here at Models as Journal First on Wednesday in the session 1 by Joost Mertens. And in that paper, we presented the notation. You can see the notation on the right side here, and had as a running example my television room downstairs, and how to try to control that in different steps depending on what happened to that room and to the world around it, making it necessary to evolve the system over time. And our focus in this notation is to focus on the purpose of these digital twins. Of course, it has to do with digital twins. And you can see the digital twins are shown at the bottom part here. And there is a relation between the digital twins and their purposes. As a DarTwin has to do with evolution, right? So to define the evolution, we show the difference between the old system, the system from which you want to evolve, which you did evolve, into something else. And we show that by using the orange color in order to show the changes from what was the old one to the new one. But I will not talk a lot about this now because we will see more examples in just a few seconds. So we wanted to use SysML version 2 in order to define this DarTwin DSL. And we wanted to go from the notation to a language for some reason. And we wanted to see whether the tools for SysML version 2 could then be applicable for DarTwin directly, which in principle should be the case, right? And we wanted to be able to see that SysML version 2 might give us a seamless integration with SysML version 2, which could also help DarTwin and its adaptation. And of course, also applying the upcoming language infrastructure for SysML version 2 with library systems, small encoding, as well as the tools, etc. Our meta model, our definition of our DSL, is a fairly simple model. And you can see here that there are these central concepts, DarTwin, sort of defining the whole system context. And of course, the twin system containing the digital twins here, digital twins, and Also, as I said, our focus is on the purposes or the goals. As you can see, if you don't know, even though it was, I guess, briefly mentioned by the former presenter, that SysML version 2 is both graphical and textual. And it's mostly started off being textual, and then the graphics has come somewhat later. And the precision is definitely high in the textual notation. And also, SysML version 2 has had the ambition to have a formal definition of the language. It also has a mechanism for making a DSL, meaning that you're able syntactically to define your own keywords. It's a fairly simple kind of, let's say, domain-specific language creation, but it's helpful to have your own keywords. And the way to do that is to connect this, let's say, library representing your MetaMall to the keywords. And the way that this is done is through a simple textual representation where the keyword is given by this magic position here, and where also the definition of it is then points back to the place in the library that defines it. Okay, so now we have an example very close to the example shown in one of the first slides, where you have a simple DarTwin. This represents a simple goal and a very generic digital twin, etc. And so here again, we have the DarTwin, and following the twin system, defining the design below, and the digital twins also having ports just as normal UML composite structures. And the actual twin is also represented in this, as well as the goals. You can see also how the digital the actual twins actual twin is represented, basically only represented by the ports of the at the twin system. So this is then a not very much of evolution in itself, represents a way of looking at any digital twin system. But if we want to add, as I said, with the orange color, the color chosen because it supposedly is the easiest color for people who are color weak to see. But it's also a strong way to give those that do see the colors a way to distinguish what happens. So a dot trans is a transition from something that was before until to something which will happen through an evolution. And the way that is done is by then first pointing out what is the starting point, and here it is the basic, which is the starting point, the one that you saw before, and then of course what is added to it. Here in this transition, there's only additions and no deletions. I'll show another example later that also includes some deletion. So by using SysML version 2 to define our DSL, what was actually gained? It's a more like a language now rather than just a notation, because it's got a precise textual notation and not only a graphical notation. We found by having to define it more precisely through SysML version 2, we needed to make a few corrections and improvements. We needed to make a more proper notation for deletions. And we found that we needed to make a clear distinction between the transitions and just defining a digital twin system situation. And we can make the definition develop into a SysML version 2 system model if we want to. And from that, going to anywhere you want, like the former presenter also showed. Okay, so far so good. But having then made this DSL, of course, we wanted to validate it and to see how we could use it. And as I said, we wanted to check out how the different tooling could work directly onto our domain-specific language. And we chose 3 tools, not the one that was mentioned by the former presenter, but we tried out 3 other fairly easily available tools. And our case was a strawberry cultivation situation. As you can see, there's a small laboratory on the right there featuring these strawberries. And it's a fairly simple DarTwin on the left side, which was then used and modified and checked out in that way. But we started off with just this DarTwin here, and we want to see how that looked in these and how we could make it in these 3 tools. And we started off with a SysML version 2 pilot implementation, which is an implementation that has been updated alongside the definition of the SysML version 2 for the last N years. It's been there for people to check out during the development of the SysML version 2. And it's built upon plant UML and it's by that it does automatic rendering, and there is no way to change it for us after it has been rendered. As you can see, it's not to be changed, and you can notice a few things like texts going upon each other here. We don't get the purposes exactly where we want them, and there are some other small bugs related to the plant UML in this. And then we tried a tool called Tom Sawyer, which are specialized on visualization and which is also actually built on top or are actually using the textual part of the pilot implementation. And the problems there were different. We could actually modify the layout after its first automatically layout. And we did that here by getting the purposes on top and the twin system at the bottom. But there are some problems with keywords, and there are no ways that we could find in order to get the annotations from the twin system to these purposes. Yeah. So, and of course we would of course liked not to have to edit every time we get a graphic rendering of our system. The third one takes another road. This is on tool, and it has decided to focus on graphic editing directly. So it's and as you can see, again, we are able to get the graphics more or less according to what we would like. But again, we didn't get the opportunity to get annotations from the digital twin to the purposes. And there are some problems with our own keywords. There are some problematic issues there as well. More details can be found, of course, in the paper. So that was the tooling experiences. Didn't go not too bad, not too good either. There are obviously more that we would like because we started off having DarTwin as a notation because we believe that the graphical notation is useful for the description and definition of evolution of digital twins. But there should be hope for the future. All of these tools are moving targets. They are improving by the day. And also SysML version 2 has mechanisms to define views and viewpoints. And that may hopefully be improved in the future and enhanced so that it's possible to help people that want to make DSLs get their own graphical notation to work out well. Finally, I will talk about using DarTrans for the evolution. We have a DarTwin for evolution can be used in two ways. Either to define a concrete transition via DarTrans directly, as we have shown, or we could use it by making define a concrete transition, given that we already know in generic terms how we want to make that transition. And for that purpose, we have a stepwise procedure, and we have shown that on our crane example. So this is a crane. It's actually a toy crane, of course, but it's supposed to represent elements out of real cranes or harbors. And here we have the DarTrans graphics and parts of the textual because it's simplified because the text will be too long for the slide. So how do we use DarTrans? Well, I'll go fairly quickly through that. The situation is that first we want to know we are going to use a generic DarTrans pattern. And the one that we are going to use is a generic pattern for replacing one digital twin with another. And that definition is given here in graphics and in textual. So we'll start to look at the elements here. First of all, we talk about the core. The core is what is not going to change in the evolution. It stays as before. And then the DarTwin before represents what is going to be deleted from the system under evolution. And finally, the DarTwin after defines what is being added in the end in order for the evolution to be completed. And that's basically the principle. And how do we apply that to a given system? The first steps are to make sure that the DarTwin before or our real system is matching the DarTwin before of the pattern. So we match that by specializing the DarTwin before of the pattern with the starting points of our evolving system. And all the elements of the DarTwin before, also including those of DarTwin core, of course, should be redefining those of the pattern without altering the full semantics, of course, of the system. And having then matched it up with that, we know that we could see it as a specialization of the patterns before. And then the next step will be to do some deletion in order to take away what is needed to get down to what is actually not changing at all. And that's what we do here. So, and we delete everything that is from the body of the DarTwin before of the pattern. And now, having done that, and you can see that everything that had to do with the first digital twin is now removed from our system. And we're left with what is only the core. And then we just add the new part, which is defined in the DarTwin after of the pattern. And we specialize from that. And that may include whatever it needs. And we then will, in the end, we will flatten the model so that the pattern that we are trying to use is no longer visible in the system. So all the contents of the pattern is now merged into the model. In our simple case here, there was only structural mechanisms in this. So that means the merge was quite trivial. And maybe even easier is to see this transition graphically, where those elements that was in the situation from the beginning, but had to be deleted for the evolution, is given in the dashed orange here. And those things that are being added are given in the solid orange over here. Okay, so that concludes the talk. Let's have a look at the potential future developments that we want to do with the DarTwin DSL. We want to increase, enhance, and generalize the DarTwin transition pattern library in order to, let's say, make potential evolutions more generic and useful. And of course, the tooling issue to render the DarTwin DSL into DarTwin notation in a more precise way. And tooling to support using DarTwin procedure for evolution, hopefully using the graphic interaction for that purpose as well. And that concludes my talk on this.